Going live, going live, going, we are live. Woo!
Woohoo!
Welcome to The Core of What Matters with Emily Kate and starring special guest Taylor Louise. Oh, this is going to be juicy.
It's
Now, I'm just
gonna
going to
be
double check.
juicy.
I'm double check that we've gone live. I know that's like a broken record. Every time you hear someone's live, the first thing you hear is, I'm going to double check that we're live. So funny. We are live. Great.
Woohoo!
Hello. If you're tuning in, say hello. This is Taylor Stewart. She is a sex and intimacy coach, and she is out to banish shame from the bedroom. And that is not even the tip of the iceberg with you. Hey, it's like that's just like that's very mild curry compared to what this girl serves up. I'm like, so how about we get into it?
Yeah.
I just want to say this show, The Core of What Matters, is about getting to the core of what matters to people. And I only have extraordinary people come onto this channel to talk about extraordinary stories, extraordinary things that they're up to. So this is why I've got Taylor on. She has an extraordinary story. She is an extraordinary human being. And I'm going to let you, Taylor, just share a little bit about yourself and what, why are you so
Yeah.
extraordinary? It's like, yeah, if you want to give yourself a better introduction than I did.
All right. Okay, so I am Taylor Louise or Taylor Stewart, both because both are my name, which people get a little bit confused about. But I'm a sex and intimacy coach.
Whoop,
I'm
whoop.
also started my Masters of Counseling this week, so I'm training to be a trauma counselor. And the reason I'm doing that is because I am out to end human trafficking.
I love how you say it like that. And human trafficking. And you know what I love about you? And this is something that I started with as well. I got so significant when I started learning about and like kind of really taking on that I wanted to be someone who made an impact to mental health. I got so significant and I was like, what, like this needs to happen, this needs to be done. And then what I realized was I was trying to fight fire with fire. And what I love about you, and because I know I see this in myself, is that you don't have to be significant. You don't have to take yourself uber seriously and be someone who's black and white per se, white collared, to be able to make a difference to human trafficking. Even just how you
Yeah.
introduced it, is like this, like human trafficking. It doesn't have to be the significant thing. It doesn't mean it's not serious. So,
Yeah,
sorry, but
100%.
I really just
That's
wanted to acknowledge that.
that's really a big thing for me. So I had an event earlier this year to raise money for a charity that works on the front line with victims and saves people.
Mm.
And I really got clear, like, I have this amazing life, and the people in my life have this incredible life. I live on the Gold Coast. I can walk to the beach. Like, life is
Mm.
freaking phenomenal. And what I saw, a lot of charities, they use guilt and shame, like, you need to donate. These people have a terrible life. And yes, human trafficking is a serious issue. It's a big problem. People are being exploited. Millions of people, like more than 40 million people, are victims of modern slavery of some sort on the
Mm.
planet. So that's nearly twice the population of Australia.
Yeah,
But I
wow.
didn't want people to feel bad that they have a good life. I want the people that are victims of these sorts of issues, the people that don't have a good life because they're being exploited, because horrible things are happening to them. I want them to have a life like mine. I don't want to feel guilty that I have this amazing life.
Yeah, I love that. And you don't need to suffer to make a difference to suffering.
No.
And that's where that guilt is, I even noticed it for myself. How dare I have nice things? How dare I have a beautiful savings account when some people don't have much at all or don't have anything? And yeah, I can even relate. I had this moment in Sydney, and I'd seen a homeless man, He probably would have only been in his early 20s. And by the way, if you're jumping on, I can't see if you're jumping on because we're on a couple of different platforms. Say hello. You're welcome to contribute to this conversation. But ultimately, I met this guy and he had his dog with him and instantly just felt guilt. And I said to him, the way to try to appease my own guilt, I offered him some money. And I realized, I was like, oh, I'm just doing that thing where I'm trying to make myself feel better. I'm not really making a difference. And so I thought to myself, what might be the way that I would make a difference? It's like, you don't have to give money to make a difference to someone. So I actually went back and I said, hey, just before I leave, it was really late at night, by the way, just before I leave, Chris is his name, and his dog's name was Princess. It was cute. Just before I leave, I just want to know, what's your story? Why are you here? And he was like, oh, just I ran into some trouble. He said something, and it was kind of like, yeah, I just ran into trouble, and this is easier, and it's only temporary, and I just thought, if you're going to be here tomorrow night, I'd love to have a conversation with you about that, and not to try and fix or change your circumstance, but I just really want to hear. And I didn't even get to see him the next night, but what was really clear for me was that it was the acknowledgement of. It was like I didn't have to give him money to make myself feel better about someone being on the street. I just had to acknowledge that that's where he was and acknowledge him for being, he's a human being. And he could be my brother. If I had a son, he could be my son. Someone's son. So yeah. There's so many, and you don't have to be someone who goes in and pulls people out of homes to be someone who makes a difference to human trafficking.
Yeah, and that's why I'm doing my master's.
Yeah.
Because I met someone who does go undercover and save people, and he is a middle-aged white man. And he said to me, perpetrators look like me, so I can go undercover. And I was like, well, perpetrators don't look like me, do they? So if I try to go undercover, I'm going to stand out a bit. So where do I fit into this process? Because there's people doing amazing work already, and where is my role?
Wow. I just want to let that sit for a moment. Wow. Yeah, I get it. Far out. When did you realize that? Give me a scenario. So where were you? Yeah, so you had this realization. I don't know what that noise was. It wasn't me. Was that you?
I don't think so, but maybe.
Something happened. Anyway, so you had this realization. That's so profound too, He can acknowledge that he looks like a perpetrator, which is why he can make a difference. And then you could acknowledge that you don't. So how are you going to impact this?
I was sitting in a coffee shop down the road from my house with him, talking about the event I was planning. And he said I was like, when he told me that's what he did, I was like, why are you even having coffee with me? Like, you have way more important things to do than buy me coffee and talk to me about some event I'm running. But yeah, I just sat there with him and I was like, I've never wanted to be a dude until I met him. And I was like, God, I want to be a middle-aged white man because I want to impact this issue.
Amazing. That's crazy. That's crazy, but I get it. I get the mentality of that. I can relate to it because I want to make a difference to men expressing themselves. And I want to impact as many men on this planet as I can so that they stop killing themselves. And for a really long time, I've been like, why couldn't I have just been a man with this vision? And I've been trying to make a difference to men through other men. You know, all of my team, they're five men on my team. And so I get it. Now, at what point, hello, if you're joining us, welcome. I can't see, yes, me too, honey. I can't actually see who's commenting because you must be on a different platform. We're streaming across a couple of platforms, so make yourself be known so that I can say hello. But yeah, so this is amazing, Taylor. I love that you've hit this because it proves that you don't have to look or be a certain age even to make an impact where you see your vision. Oh, Trish, it's you. Hi, Trish. Beautiful Trish. Yeah, you just come up on StreamYard as Facebook user. Thanks for joining us, Trish. So basically, I want you to share how you got an access. What was the aha moment for you when you got an access to being able to make a difference? Because I know when you first started our programs, I know that you were like, I don't know how to put it all together.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to start this non-for-profit. I was really clear. I'm not allowed to have a job because the last 3 jobs I have, those positions don't exist, and 2 of the companies are no longer companies.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I get a job, you're going out of business. So
yeah,
or you're gonna whatever that looks like one of them sold and one of them COVID-19 impacted, and the other one I was made redundant. And I'm like, I need to do something for work that isn't working for someone else because this is going badly. I'm trying to get this non-for-profit happening, and I didn't really know what that would look like in COVID. And I'd been doing coaching on some landmark programs, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do. I was enrolled in my Masters of Counseling and looking at yoga teacher training.
Awesome.
And then there was just this moment that Saturday, and I was like, I'm going to teach people how to have the best sex they've ever had.
Bam, out of nowhere.
And it just came out of my mouth. It's like I didn't even say it. I just said it.
Yeah.
And Jess turned around. She was talking to someone else, and Jess is like, yes, that. Like, she was so excited. And then everyone was like, what? And they could hear the excitement in me, and they're like, what? And I was like, hang on. And I really looked, and I was like, I just nearly swore, but not going to. I was like, F. Like, this is the flip. This is raw and real. I was like, yeah, fuck. This is the flip side of the human trafficking. I was like, the reason human trafficking, and in particular, it's sex slavery, that really grinds my gears.
You broke up just as you started to get into it. So you said really what's at the core of human trafficking is sex slavery. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
That's the thing that really gets me.
Okay, yeah.
That's the thing that really makes every cell in my body hurt. And I was like, it's because people are being forced to have sex. And as soon as I got that, this world came out, and I was like, over the next 3 days, I was like, I am out to banish shame from the bedroom and from our hearts and our lives.
Yeah, because you can see that it directly impacts human trafficking.
Yeah. I was like, when I looked at it from an economic standpoint, I was like, why do we have people engaging in sexual activity with sex slaves?
Yeah.
And I was like, is there shame there? Is there that they can't get laid any other way? Is there it's
a powerful question to ask. That is, why is this happening? And not coming from another place of shame. Not, why is this happening? This is so unjust. This is disgusting. Not coming from more shame and more guilt, but actually looking at it. What's actually missing? What's missing in communication, what's missing in society, what's missing in relationship, that people are actually going out and needing that service because it dominates industry, human trafficking.
And one of the things that I always questioned was, when do we stop being an innocent child that is the way we are because of our circumstances and our upbringing and any trauma or abuse we've had? When do we stop being that child? At what moment is it now my responsibility to not be that way anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any answers, I'm looking down because my phone's here, looking at comments coming through Channel Raw and Real. So if you have any comments on this, if you think you have the answers, if you have any notion or anything that you want to contribute, please put it in the comments. Courtney's just said power struggle. That makes a lot of sense. This need to, especially when you feel powerless as a child, and then you're growing up into an adult. And you're like, now I have power.
Yeah. And one of the things I am looking at eventually doing once I have my master's is creating a curriculum that firstly deals with masculinity and expressing, sexuality for men. And it would be what it looks like to me at the moment, just as an idea, is like a curriculum for teenage boys, for men in university, for corporate, all of that. And I know you and I spoke about that. And because once I saw that, I was like, that would also impact the suicide rate. That would also impact DV, because again, that power struggle, it's all interconnected.
Yeah. And at the core of all of that, I mean, not even at the core of all of that, but where we see that show up the most is in intimate relationships, in sex. And just putting here, Courtney, that idea that someone has sex with someone unwilling being said to be engaged in sex with someone who doesn't want it enrages me. Courtney, I get it. I feel the rage.
It makes me sick. Like,
yeah, I get
some
anxious.
of the stories I've heard, I'm like crying and I'm like, I need to throw up and I'll be back.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it is a physical reaction. It's like my DNA freaks out that this is happening to another human being. That's how deeply I feel that pain for humanity, because it is a pain for humanity that is happening.
Yeah. You don't see it separate from you.
No.
Yeah. No, I don't either. And I'm the same, people that are suffering internally with their thoughts and their internal state. And I don't see any separation because I can relate to those experiences. And what's interesting too, Taylor, and I'm clear that this is unique to you, this experience and this vision of wanting to be someone who ends human trafficking. And it's not because of you as an individual. And I'm saying that there are a lot of people that probably have a similar vision, right? You're doing it in a very unique way, which I love. But what is it about you? So what is it about you that this is so important to you?
It's that I don't feel like my life belongs to me. I feel like my life belongs to others. I don't feel separate. I'm very spiritual, and even just saying that, like 3 weeks ago, I would have really struggled to say that on a live because I was worried of the label it would give me. I was worried of people's reaction, and I did some work with Emma Baker and really got to the bottom of that, some somatic work.
Yeah.
I'm very spiritual. I feel very connected. I say, like, I walked down the street 2 months ago and a woman hit me. And I say I stepped into her energy and she went, get the fuck out. And it was because I'd just woken up. I'd done yoga before I went to bed. I was in this really calm. I was going to the beach, in touch with nature. None of my own thoughts and feelings were happening. I was just walking to the beach.
Yeah.
And she hit me. And I 100% like I got in that space.
Like with her
My
car?
energy. Beg your pardon?
What do you mean she hit you with her car or?
No, she had her shoes in her hand. And
Oh,
yeah, she screamed, "What the fuck are you looking at?" And she hit me. Now, I couldn't
oh,
identify her. If I
okay.
had reported her and the police had arrested and lined and she'd been in that crowd, I could not have identified her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
spiritually or universally or energy, whatever you want to call that, whether it's God or I don't want to offend anyone by using words that are tied in with your religion, but we're not separate.
No.
I'm not separate from you. I'm not separate from the world, nature, the earth.
Mm,
So my life doesn't belong to me. I'm
mm,
not an island over here by myself.
yeah. And you don't mean, I just want to clarify that too. I'm going to read Courtney's um, comment in a minute, but I just want to clarify because this is what I can hear because I have a similar belief, right? And a value. There's a value for me that my life is of service. And you don't mean that your life isn't important and who you are as a person isn't important, but rather that you know that your life is to serve others. And this life is an opportunity to serve others.
And
At least that's what I'm
actually,
hearing.
it makes me more important.
Hmm.
For me, if my life doesn't belong to me, all of a sudden, I'm really fucking important.
Yeah.
Because what I'm going to do, the ripple effects of that
Yeah.
are so huge, and I'm never going to see 90% of the ripples that I make.
Mm.
Right? Like I had an event here on the Gold Coast and raised $1,300 and donated that to Hagar, who work with victims. I don't know whose wage that paid or what service that provided to who, or,
Yeah.
maybe it could be anything. They do a magnitude of stuff. They do counseling, they rehabilitate. It might even just be like I paid for pillowcases in an orphanage of people who had been, who knows where that money went.
Yeah.
And the lives that impacted.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it makes the fact that I had that event and all the people that showed up in that room so important.
And it's not even about the money. Money's a tool. I mean, money's used as a tool, and even in business, you look at money as just as something that you measure on performance. Ultimately, though, what you created had much more value than the money that you made.
Yeah, people talking about the issue. There were heaps of people that couldn't make it that night. Now, some of them donated. Some of them just like looked at the cleaners that they employed and were like, I'm just going to check that those women that are cleaning my house haven't been trafficked.
I love that.
Like,
yeah. That actually happened to someone I know recently. She had to save her cleaner from a domestic. But even that in that scenario can seem like that person's being enslaved. In domestic relationships, there's that sense of control. So I just wanted to read Courtney, and the person perpetrating these acts has some deep shit to deal with. Women and/or children do not exist to serve or meet a broken person's needs or lack of connection. Yeah, and
I want to talk to that, Em.
Yeah.
So one of the things I saw a post, I don't even know whose post it was, and if this was your post, you had a profound impact on my life. They said, I'm a sexual healer. And as a sexual healer, when I see a pedophile, and they described something that might have happened to them. They said, when I see a rapist, I see it, and it was this stuff that happened to them as a child. When I see an abuser from a domestic violence relationship, I see the young person that was blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's dealing with and I say this all the time. What happened to someone? Like, what must they think about the world? What would have to happen to me for me to think my only hope in surviving this life is to kidnap women and children and force them to have sex with middle-aged white men? in my brothel?
Yeah.
Like, what would have to happen? What must I think about the world? And how
Mm.
hopeless must I see life being for me to think that I should do that to survive, that I have no other choice?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I get that. I really do. I get that. And, I actually for years was fixated on trying to understand the mentality of it. And there just isn't one answer to it. And there isn't, there are some commonalities in abusers. And there are commonalities and there can be a pattern to trafficking. Ultimately, though, there's not one answer to how to solve the problem. And this again, bringing it back to sex and intimacy and banishing shame from the bedroom, it's like that is one of very many solutions to being able to interrupt culturally conversations and experiences that are happening. And you're not looking out there in third world countries, you're looking in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, and looking at empowering our men and women to communicate.
Yeah.
Because once you create that conversation, like I had the most amazing conversation last night. So Angie and I ran a live discussion about the female orgasm. Last night, we run it once a month via Zoom. Cameras must be on.
I love that.
I
was doing my own live. Yeah, but I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about consent. And we got to the point of even just like, how do we stand up for ourselves and make the men we're having sex with wear condoms when they don't want to? And something as empowering women just in that little thing, right? And some people they always do that. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people experience pressure.
Especially younger women.
Yeah. I had a partner, and before we went out, he was like, I'd rather not have sex if I have to wear a condom. Yeah. And I just was like, he won't have sex with me if I want him to wear a condom. So I need to make sure I'm on the pill. And we lived together. We were like, we were safe and all of that. Well, I was safe, but it was just never an option. No, and I actually said to him at the end of our relationship, I was like, it is not okay that that's how I felt. And that is that you just were like, but maybe there's nothing wrong with him saying he'd rather not have sex, right?
Yeah, it's just
but I needed to be empowered. Yeah. I needed to be empowered to say, well, I refuse to have sex without one. And then maybe we're not a match. Yeah. But I was so caught up in wanting him to like me. And I'll never find anyone like him. Yeah, exactly. And not empowered to love and respect myself and, follow what I feel is right for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's amazing. I'm about to read Courtney's message because there's some profound stuff there that I want to address. But basically, I had the same conversation last night, probably at the same time, Taylor, which really blows my mind. And, a couple of months ago, I wouldn't have said that I was a spiritual person. I am. I really am. And my belief system is completely altered in the last couple of months. But not getting into that, but really going, last night I had a conversation about how to have a life of pleasure, how to experience pleasure. And really my access to pleasure is boundaries, creating solid boundaries. So in saying that, I want to point out Courtney's message. So what makes me mad here is that women need to set the boundary, whereas the men doing the work with the men. Look, I want to point to that. Now, there's a couple of points, and you're not wrong, right? I get it. We women are having extraordinary conversations, and we are moving mountains as women with culture that has suppressed women. We're now moving mountains. We've moved that culture. It's like, I don't even hear about that anymore. I'm like, no way. Exactly. If anything, there's been a conversation for women that just do want to stay home that's made wrong. So, they do want to stay home. They do want the simplicity of being a housewife. I know that's what my mum wants. My mum wants to just be someone who takes care of the kids, sits at home. But then she went and got herself a business and she's like, oh, it's not really want to do, but I'm doing it. So let me just
It
speak to
actually
that.
sounds pretty good. And I fall into that trap. Like, I have this higher calling now, but I was
Yeah,
like, nah, I can't just let a man support me because
I
there's
get it.
something wrong with that. And it's like,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
damned if you do or you're damned if you don't.
exactly. But let me speak specifically to the men doing the work. Courtney, this is why this is so important to me. There, in this culture, is not much space for men to express themselves the way that we are right now. And there are men doing the work. There's not many of them, though, which is why my vision and why I'm being so unapologetic about wanting to work with men, being a woman, is that it's so necessary. Men being able to express pleasure and being able to express when they're a no as well without feeling like they're shaming themselves or being shamed by their partner for expressing themselves is so important. And I mean, I hate being the person to do it, but look at the statistics. More men are killing themselves. Much, much more men are killing themselves than women. Like 90, if you could summarize it in out of 100, it's 90% more men. And inside of how I see the world, in my view, it's because we have really, and this is like a pat on the back for us, right? As women, we have been like, no, enough is enough. And we've really stood for ourselves. And now we get to be online like this and expressing ourselves. And we get to talk about sex. And we get to talk about orgasms. And we get to make a difference to shame in the bedroom. And we get to impact mental health. And we really get to penetrate what's going to make a difference with human trafficking. Men, not many men have an access to that. So I get it when someone says, where's the men doing the work with men? What I hear in that is, you're right. There isn't many. And that's concerning. Not, I don't see a he said, she said. They should be doing more. I should be doing less. It's like, no, now I'm like, I have the power. And where I see it's missing is over there with men. So I'm going to go and empower them. And I'm going to raise us all up at the same time. There's no women above men, men above women thing for me. That doesn't exist for me at all. It's just human being. And that's what you kind of pointed to before, Taylor, too, is why you? Because you are no separate from anybody else. That's why.
Yeah.
It's a profound thing to get.
I've been spending quite a bit of time talking with men who are doing this kind of work. And we had a man on our first live session. So when I first ran it, he reached out and he said, is this only for women? And I was like, no. And he came along and he said, I feel seen. And I forget that there are people out there that don't feel seen because I'm surrounded by this amazing community now. But 2 years ago, I didn't feel seen.
Yeah.
And I forget sometimes that not everyone is experiencing that.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why we have these conversations. It's like not too long ago, I was anxiety ridden. I had depression. Not too long ago, I had an older brother that wanted to take his life multiple times. And then dealing with the helplessness of that. And
it's having these conversations with the men in our life.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I do this with my partner, and we deal with a lot of stuff, and a lot of things come up, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yes.
And we just like sometimes I'm just like, I just need you to hold my hand because I'm not enjoying this conversation, but I need to be here.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And then I said to him, so he has dealt with that. When we met, he didn't want a relationship, and now we've been together 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
And he did all of that work. But I said to him, I want you to go and hang out with men that are in loving, committed relationships. Because at the moment, it's him, and the culture at his work is, we're too busy for relationships.
Mm.
And I said, I love that you get to be that for the men you work with, but I really need you to go and hang out with these men that are like one of our friends. And I did a live with Jason Blewett last week.
Yeah. Great.
And when Ben introduced me to Jason, Jason was like, yeah, I want to meet your queen.
I love that.
And I was like, why aren't you hanging out with men that talk like that more?
Yeah, there needs to be a balance, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same. I just want to get through some of these messages. So, guys, I'm not neglecting you. Please don't stop, interacting. There's just some points that I really love for Taylor to touch on because she does this work in her relationship. She's not just saying to people, look, if you could banish shame, your own shame from the bedroom, then you'll be better off, and it'll help this. No. She's in her own backyard pulling the weeds. So
yeah,
that's why I didn't want to skip over that. That's amazing. And I love Jason Blewett just did our 3-day immersion. And he is one of the men, Courtney, if you want to be empowered by men, being out there and making a difference in a new fashion. If you don't know Jason Blewett or Alex Kenny, Matthew Liam Gardner. If you don't know any of those names, I'm happy to tag them in this post. But these are men that are really out there wanting to integrate this culture, and they want to build men up. And they want to let men know that it's okay to be feminine and have expression and have emotions. And I think that's amazing. And there's not enough of that happening. And then there's this polarity, right? Even like you were saying, your boyfriend's workspace is all this culture of single men not having time for relationships. And you're like, no, there needs to be a balance. You need to actually surround yourself with more people that do have relationships for that culture to exist. Now, I'm doing the same with the people that I mentor my younger brother, by the way. He's a mechanic. And that culture is very like, it's very blokey, tradey. The conversation around women is, I'm not even going to go there, but it's, he said the environment's not always nice. And he's having this conversation. He started this conversation in his workplace because we created a thing called BestLife, and he wants to make a difference to blokes being able to express as well. So he's now starting to have those conversations with the blokes that he works with. So now, not only, and I'm not saying to him to shut down those other conversations, I'm just saying add more of the things that you really want to make a difference to. And then watch how the playing field levels out. It's no longer.
And can I just say,
yeah,
they want to have these conversations. They just don't know how. Yes. I was talking to my partner. We did a live on body image. I ran a live discussion with one of my nutritionalist friends. And to promote it, I got the male perspective, and my beautiful boyfriend came along for that. And some of his workmates were giving him a hard time a few days later. And I was like, and I listened to him and I heard him and I was like, I get it. And like, they're being jerks. And I hate that they're saying that to you. But I was like, they also don't feel that they can come and tell you that they watched you do that.
Yes.
But they watched it because they know what you said word for word, and now they're picking on you for saying it.
Yep, exactly. And I come at this from a bit of a different angle too. I know that I used to be a bit of a hard ass with the communication and language. I really did. I was a communication Nazi. And it's some of the training that I've had. is just all around how your words create exactly what's in reality. Now, I don't entirely believe that now, but I do know how important communication is. And specifically training myself in how to communicate into someone else's listening. Now, if you're surrounded by people that are, for example, like your partner in his workplace, if you're surrounded by people who have an agreement that you don't talk about, it's not even a verbal agreement, a non-verbal agreement, and I know we all have these, society has them, non-verbal agreement that you don't talk about relationship, you don't talk about feelings, for example. You know, there's a non-verbal agreement with men. You don't talk about feelings. It's uncomfortable. And it seems weak. The experience is that it's weak. So there's this non-verbal agreement, and then your boyfriend's out there gone on these lives and his friends are watching. And they're like, how do we address this? How do we address this inside of this agreement? You know? And your boyfriend might not even have the tools to create a new agreement or the access. But the fact that he's going in there and it can simply just be being with that they don't know how to be with this new conversation. This happens a lot to me because, you know, I'm coaching men and I'm like, this is a place to be fully expressed. They don't even know what that means. They have no idea what that means. I just want to address Courtney. I think I want to meet a man who can hear us women speak and not be triggered and speak to that in the work they're doing. I have one, but he's not in this space. He's doing the weed pulling in his own backyard first, breaking the damn agreement. I love it. Thank you so much for your contribution, Courtney. And look, let me just say, men are going to get triggered because they're human beings. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some men out there that can have this conversation and put their things to the side, put their weeds to the side per se. But let's, as women, and this is inside of the shame that Taylor talks about, let's as women have complete compassion for the humanity of men, as well as have compassion for ourselves when we can't be with a man that's reacting. So this is why boundaries are, again, I keep coming back to boundaries. It's so important to have agreements and boundaries recognized. Yeah, feel the trigger and then speak to it. Acknowledge it. Even if you're in a conversation with someone and you're like, wow, this is really fucked up. I don't know what to say. I can tell that he's uncomfortable. I want to make a difference here, but I feel like we're about to battle it out to the death. Acknowledge that. Be like, wow, this is really uncomfortable, isn't it? You know? And what you'll find is that pretty much eliminates those feelings straight away because you get back to that you're just standing in front of another human being. And they probably get back to that too. Oh, wow, she's just as uncomfortable as I am. This is, you know, there's that relatedness now. And again,
I had this happen the other day to me. I said something I thought was funny to Jason. So if he watches this, he'll know what I'm talking about. But I said something that I intended to be funny.
Yeah.
And it wasn't received. And all my stuff went, just ignore his reply telling me that he thought it was inappropriate. Just ignore it and never talk to him again. And then I was like, no. And I just messaged him and I was like, I was trying to be funny. And it clearly wasn't. And I'm really sorry that I've offended or that it was inappropriate or whatever. And all my, like, even talking about it now, I'm like, ugh, I want to be sick. Like, I'm so embarrassed, all of those things. But it was just a human moment. And like, that was really vulnerable for me to be like, yeah, I was trying to be funny and you didn't think I was funny.
Oh, so good. So good. And then you just got to acknowledge that instead of leave it in the space. That's what I mean by this too. Is it, I think a reason why Taylor and I don't know anyone else that's watching, Courtney, if you can relate to this, but we say that we're not separate from others. And it's because we actively train ourselves in listening for and noticing what's between us and others so that we can work on it. Because we don't want things to be between us. I don't want things to be between Taylor and I. And there isn't anything. Because if there was, it's more important for me to communicate that with her than it is to leave it and then not have that relationship. So, yeah, acknowledge it. Don't leave it in the space. And, what an epic conversation. I could talk about this for hours. I really could.
Me too.
And I'm going to tag these men in the chat, and I'm just going to say these are men that are out to make an impact. And so anybody that's watching, can go and follow those men and what they're up to. And again, I want more men. And actually, I want to go back a couple of steps. We've only got a couple more minutes. I think we're even at time, but that's fine. If Taylor can stay a couple more minutes, is that all right?
I'm good.
Awesome. So I just want to trace it back a couple of steps because I think this is really relevant, and I can feel. And again, back to the space, I bring things up because I notice that they're there in the space. So coming back a couple of steps. Now, we spoke before about. It was, what did you say? Okay, so it's something was said, and we can notice the polarity of things, right? We got really spiritual men. There are men, and I even noticed this today, okay? This is not picking on anyone that's very spiritual, very woo-woo, or into embodiment work. Absolutely not, because I love that work. But this is about bridging the two, so you don't have to be either a white collar or a guru master. How do you live in the in-between? How do you be someone like me who loves to wear and look at pretty crystals, but I don't own a crystal store, and I don't put them in the moon rays at when there's a full moon. I don't do all that stuff, but I love the context and the idea that crystals have this energy, and I'm not someone who goes out and prays. And I do things in my own way, in my own version. And I don't know, I even have a friend that she studied Buddhistry. She loves sex, right? She loves sex and she loves relationships, and she just wants to be freely herself. She calls herself a Buddhist slut. And and, I'm like, how do we as individuals not have to be one extreme or the other, but we can live inside of the in-between? And it's the same with men. What I'm noticing is that there's no space for them to just be, it's like unconsciously there's this agreement that they have to be this or that. There's no in-between. And I'm not noticing a lot of men that have the freedom to stay in a corporate job and go to men's circles. There's this pull to get out of the corporate if you're going to be in a man's circle. And there's this conversation that this environment's not for you. Come to this environment instead. So how do we now integrate? And how do we now be okay with the in-between? And it doesn't have to be one extreme to the other. It gets to be this beautiful creation of all of it.
So I'm going to go to my yoga practice this morning.
Yeah.
Because what I said, so I was sick the last 2 weeks and I didn't do any yoga, or I did 1 or 2 classes, but I've been doing like between 3 and 6 classes a week since COVID-19 hit. So I got into my practice this morning with Airway, and we were doing some stuff that I've gotten really good at, and I was crap at it. And once upon a time, I would have been like, I was a ballerina. I've been doing this. I'm strong. I should be able to do it. And I would have forced myself. But I let myself be exactly where I am right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm really applying that to my life, because one of the things I like to do is be the best.
Yeah.
Or at least my best. And I'm really just like, be exactly where you are today.
That is the golden ticket today. And I love that we're going to wrap up with that, because that really is the golden ticket. Be where you are right now. It is the hardest and most simplest thing you could ever do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I even know that about myself with yoga, by the way. I used to be a dancer. So when I do yoga, I'm like trying to be sexy. No one's even around, you know. No one's even I'm in my room trying to be sexy. No one's watching. And I'm trying to pull these poses that my body can't physically do.
Yeah.
And we're doing the same in business. We're doing the same when we're in the bedroom in sex. We're trying to do these things and we're not even there yet, you know? And so it's like, yeah, a part of being in the in-betweeners, like I just said, is just being with what's right now. Where are you at right now? And allowing others to be there too.
And it's with everything. I had a conversation with Jess last night and she was like, I'm going to do your your program. Yes. And then she like read what it was about and she was like, I'm not going to do your dating program because I'm not ready for it. And I was like, great. I'm really glad we spoke, because you've got to be where you are right now.
Yeah. Meet yourself where you're at.
All the stuff that's going on and be like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just where I am right now.
Yeah. So the way I summarize these calls, these lives, is I just take the things that I really got. And so I just want to wrap everything up before I say goodbye and acknowledge that the 3 key points that I can hear over this amazingly epic live with you was to start small. Not even start small. Look in your own backyard. And it doesn't have to be big things. It's about saying no when they don't want to wear a condom. And it's about holding someone's hand even when you want to walk away. My whole body has goosebumps, you know. And we don't realize, and we're not present to, that the small things actually impact the big things that we're seeing in the world. And it starts over here with us. And then another big takeaway is just to being with right now, and not just meeting ourselves where we're at right now and letting others meet themselves where they're at too. Having compassion for where they're at. Beautiful. I really want to acknowledge you, Taylor.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you for having me. This has been epic.
You're more than welcome. You are more than welcome. I loved this conversation and I got so much for myself. Even before this, you know, that we went live, I said to Taylor, oh man, I've had a really intense conversation just before I jumped on. And intense in the way that a lot shifted in that conversation, and there's a lot happening in my life right now. And this is raw, real, and amplified. This is the core of what matters. So let's not pretend that these things aren't happening, but let's be present to what really matters. So I just want to thank you for being that space for me to look and to really see what matters to me, and for sharing what matters to you, because it's so fucking inspiring.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, thank you, Trish. Thank you, Courtney. Anyone that jumped on and interacted. Thank you, Sky, for jumping on. Really, really appreciate it. Hey, Marilyn, if you're still there, thank you for jumping on. We really appreciate the interaction. I'm going to tag those guys below. Please check them out. And these conversations happen whenever I have an extraordinary human being that I can get on a call. So there's pretty much there's a live like this every day this week, not the weekend. And yeah, it's getting to the core of what matters, because if we can actually get present to what matters to us, and I know, Taylor, we got present to what matters to you, but the ripple effect of that is that I got to be present to what matters to me. And I can hear that Courtney got to be present, and so did Trish. You know, Trish has even shared, I want to work with men too because I believe they need more safe spaces to express frustration and anger. And frustration leads to acts of violence, and she wants to impact violence. She wants to interrupt it. So we have no idea the ripple effect that we have when we have a conversation. And so I just want everyone to be present to that. And Marilyn saying, awesome chat, ladies. Jessica Palmer, you jumped on a bit late, lady. Thank you for jumping on. Please watch the replay. I'd love your comments. I'm going to wrap this up now, and I just adore and appreciate you, Taylor, and I'm so happy to be sharing this journey with you.
It's epic.
Mwah! Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.